evening, everyone. If everybody could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chief White, if you do the honors for us. Now, Chief, after mid-January, you're going to come back every Monday night, right?
Oh, absolutely.
We do appreciate it. Every other Monday, I should say. Thank you, Chief.
You need to ask Ms. Chief that question.
Should I text Gail and ask?
Yeah, do that.
Thank you, Chief.
If you'd like to join me in a word of prayer, please do so at this time. Father God, as we stand here tonight and soon to recognize some of our Oviedo law enforcement officers, we just pray for their wisdom, that they make good decisions, and that you would comfort and protect them in all that they do, and all of our law enforcement officers. Or pray for all of our first responders. We pray for all of our city employees that work so hard day in and day out to make this one of the finest towns in Central Florida. And Father God, we ask for your continued comfort for former Mayor Mimi Bruce in the passing of her husband. Comfort her, her children, grandchildren, the entire family. We pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. Chief, it also should be noted that EP served on the council for 8 years, I believe. All righty. It is approximately 6:30, we'll call it, p.m. We have all members of council present. I will call our meeting to order. Chief Coleman, I believe the first item is yours.
I'd like to call up Sergeant Rob Van Heusen and Lieutenant Jermaine Walton to be recognized for their new promotions. I'll borrow this over here.
Chief, should we join you?
Yes, if you don't mind. Push this out that way. Like always. To council and members of the public, I just want to give a little bit of history with these two. Lieutenant Jermaine Walton has served the city for 14 years. 7 of those he served as a sergeant. He's been a patrol officer, a school resource officer at Lawton Childs Middle School and at OHS, a patrol corporal, traffic sergeant, and now he's the nighttime shift or nighttime lieutenant. And his promotion is long overdue because he's one of our finest supervisors, and he's done an excellent job in the time he's been promoted, and he did an excellent job as sergeant. Jermaine, congratulations. The next one is also long overdue, is Sergeant, well, his name is Robert, but nobody calls him Robert, Rob Van Heusen. Hold on, I'll let him in. I got ahead of myself. If you poke him, there's something. There you go. Did you want to embarrass your family at all?
I embarrassed them enough on the YouTube video according to them.
And we saw that. You don't lip sync. Here he is.
If you haven't seen it, you need to see it and also like it and share it. We'd appreciate it. The second one is Sergeant Rob Van Heusen. He served the city for 18 years. He had the 2 roughest years, his first 2 years, where he was a dispatcher with the police department. And in 2002, he's been a patrol officer, community relations officer, school resource officer at Jackson Heights Middle School, a motor officer with the traffic unit, and he's now the sergeant of D shift, which is a night shift on tonight. Rob's been, he's probably one of the most personable people when you meet. I think he can calm any situation down and has done a fine job in his recent promotion. So with that, Sergeant Rob Van Heusen. And crew.
Yes.
You make me scream, it's okay. Any words you want to say? You're not going to be.
Glad to be here.
Okay. And with that, wanted to congratulate them and thank them for their work and all that they do. I do appreciate it, guys.
You gotta get a feeling.
You guys have a camera you want me to use? Or Drew, could you take some pictures for them? Email them to? Oh, you got a camera? Congratulations.
So, Rob, you're still going to be cooking on Saturdays, right?
Always great to see folks promoted from within. I'll give everybody a moment just to clear out. All righty. Next item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes for the July 16th, 2018 regular meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion to do so.
Second.
Barbara, I'll let you figure that one out. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, next item on the agenda is our public comment portion. This is the time for the public to address the council on any item that's on the agenda or not. I have a written request on one item on the agenda. I'll call you during that item. Is there anybody in the audience like to address council? Well, you can. Well, hang on just 1 second. Come on up. You got to come up to the podium. And just name and address for the record.
Eric Peterson, 1082 Schaefer Trail.
Yes, sir. You have 10 minutes.
I already have somebody taking care of my lights out on the street. Why am I now paying you for it?
Okay, sir, we'll take that up in just a little bit. It's on the
Very
agenda.
good.
And just for the record, it's paid for out of general funds right now to Florida Power and Duke. So you are paying for it technically.
You'll not be paying for it twice.
We'll get to it. Is there anybody else who'd like to address council? Seeing and hearing none, I am going to close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to the consent agenda. Before council makes a motion, I just want to point out that there is a revised resolution for 3583-18, which actually lowers our cost. So when the motion is made, please make the motion accepting the revised resolution 3583-18.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the revision to 3583-18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman, any questions?
All good.
Councilman.
Looks good.
Councilwoman?
Looks good.
Deputy Mayor?
Good.
All righty. Hearing no questions on the consent agenda, I will call the vote. All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving along, we are up to item number 8. Let's get to that. Let me just ask if council's so inclined. Item number 8 may or may not take a few moments. Would it be okay if we go on to item number 10? We have the developer here. It's probably be disposed of a little bit quicker.
Sure.
Any objections?
Sure.
No? All right. I'm going to just move on to item number 10. That should be a quick one, which is resolution number 3582-18. Mr. Kopp?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for council to approve a non-statutory development agreement with an associated master land use plan and a preliminary subdivision plan for the Central Square redevelopment. This is the redevelopment of the former Albertson Shopping Center. The non-statutory development agreement, it includes the development standards for the proposed development that are depicted on the master land use plan. Property is approximately 13.1 acres. It's located on the west side of State Route 434 and the south side of Mitchell Hammock Road. It is designated commercial on the future land use map and designated C1 and C2 on the official zoning map, which are both commercial zoning districts. It includes the reconfiguration of 2 existing lots comprising the shopping center and approximately 360 square feet that is adjacent to the west. And on that small parcel, there's proposed to have signage. It also provides a cross-access to the east that eventually will connect to the South Lake Jessup Avenue intersection. The maximum floor area of the site's buildings may increase from a current floor area of approximately 85,684 to a maximum of 99,000 square feet. The existing shopping center, there really isn't a plan to increase that. The increase is coming through 2 new out parcels that are proposed as part of the development. The NSDA does provide for the permissible uses on the property. It's listed there. It also provides for building height. I wanted to note that the building height shall be 60 feet, and the maximum height for an architectural feature is 75 feet. The maximum square footage is 99,000 square feet. The maximum impervious area of the site will be 75,000 square feet. The project plans to maintain the access points that are currently into the property on both Mitchell Hammock Road and on State Route 434. Would like to note that the southern access on State Route 434 will be relocated to the north to align with the new median opening there on 434 to allow for left turns in. It also provides for the off-street parking spaces as well as for the buffering and landscaping to go along with the development. There is a 400 square foot plaza that will be provided, and there is a comprehensive plan mobility strategy. One strategy will be provided as required by the comprehensive plan, and that would be the inclusion of an additional electric car charging station. The NSDA also provides for a sign plan that is included in the as well, and graphics were provided as part of the master land use plan. The architectural design is currently in review. A separate architectural design order will be issued for the architectural design. The applicant is incorporating, it's a brand-new design. The shopping center is being completely redone, and it will have a consistent theme throughout the property. Staff reviewed the master land use plan, the development agreement, and the preliminary subdivision plan, and they recommend approval. The city attorney has also reviewed the non-statutory development agreement and has offered no objections. The local planning agency considered the resolution at its July 17, 2018 meeting, and they're at recommended approval. It's recommended that City Council adopt resolution number 3582-18.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. I see the applicant is present. Do you have a presentation for us?
Good evening. Peter Such, CPH, 500 West Fulton Street, Sanford, Florida. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. We do have a very brief presentation just to give an overview of the proposed improvements. And if I could ask staff if they could put up the first graphic. We'll go to the next one, please. So I know everyone's very familiar with the shopping center. It's about 13 acres on the southwest corner. Old Albertsons anchored shopping center built in 1993. And its design at the time was appropriate. It's traditional strip center, grocery anchored. Over the course of time, due to business issues associated with Albertsons, it did close in 2010, and really has struggled to gain an effective tenant that would be able to utilize the shopping center just as it is today. I mean, right now that shopping center, I want to say the Albertsons box is just over 65,000 square foot alone, just for Albertsons. And really that kind of fell in between too small for a big box tenant, too large for junior anchor type tenants. So its continued use was definitely challenged. And as a result, the shopping center just really hasn't been very sustainable. And that was coupled with a couple of other items associated with the site design. You know, right now the parking design is such that it's squared to the anchor, but it's angled to the balance of the perimeter. So it's not very convenient to go up and down the shopping center aisles. In fact, it promoted, I remember when it was open, and it promoted a lot of cut-through traffic, you know, through the parking spaces across the center aisle. So that was definitely not a design that was very functional for users. Also, as staff had mentioned, the access point to Alafaya Trail had been revised per DOT as a part of the Alexandria signal, and that misaligned the access. So it gave us an opportunity to take a look at how circulation within the site functions. And if we could go to the, we'll go to the next one, if we could, to the site plan. So our proposal is actually to fix the parking lot, is to actually make the parking rows still that are perpendicular to the main anchor, make them 90-degree parking, and provide an access drive that would cut through the middle of the shopping center so that it now gives good effective access to the anchors as well as to what was a dead zone of the shopping center and now will be reclaimed with some additional retail. And the nice thing about this additional retail is, you know, the shopping center in its current configuration didn't relate very well to the street. It was set very far back and in a sense disappeared over time because of just the maturity of the existing landscaping and trees within the shopping center. And as such, it just became distant and not relative to customers passing by. What this will help do by adding the shops along State Road 434, now it has a street front presence. Now it becomes relative. And it has life, and it'll invite people to come in because of the additional retail that would be provided along 434. And this additional retail is actually made possible by the fact that about 30 foot of the existing shopping center, as you've seen today, has actually, and it's already been removed, helped to free up that square footage, which really wasn't very good as far from a leasable perspective, and put it now with the out parcels so that it becomes much more leasable, much more sustainable, and attractive to good quality tenants. As a part of this redevelopment, internal landscaped islands are added. That increases the landscaping internally within the parking lot. And overall, it functions much, much better than it does today. Now, as a part of this, as we mentioned, the challenge has been getting tenants. to fill this spot. And the developer, who's represented by Mr. Jim Gendro today of City Center LLC, they worked very hard to try and figure out the best mix, because you're battling against two opposing forces. It's number one, making a space that's marketable, that's leasable to good quality tenants, and then you're dealing with the cost associated with doing a redevelopment. You can't just scrape it clean and start fresh, because the way that certain regulations are nowadays, you can never end up having a development which would be able to provide the return, which at least utilizing the existing structures to the extent that they're able to today is able to provide. So it's a delicate balance, and I got to thank staff very much for all the hard work that they've done in trying to work with us to come up with a development scheme that provides great improvement to the existing shopping center, and also the ability for this business owner to actually see a business that could be profitable and sustainable. So as a part of this, they've actually, with this plan, able to lure in a good quality organic grocer. You've seen probably the name out there advertised on the construction fencing. They have Sprouts on a lease, and that Sprouts is looking to have them deliver their space in the first quarter of next year. So they're ready to go. They're working very, very hard and have committed to that. Now, Sprouts alone doesn't make the shopping center successful, but I tell you, it's a very, very important first piece. And with that, then, it makes it attractive for other good quality developers to look at the center, whereas before they would have bypassed it.
PJ, you going to keep Subway in there?
We are, we're going to be totally redoing the facade. They want to stay. So, my partner happens to be his neighbor, so.
I don't know.
So and as a part of that, hopefully other, tenants, I know Jim's working very, very hard to bring in other good quality tenants to fill the space. But I will tell you that the Sprouts lease was contingent upon a number of different things. Number one, a good, effective parking field in front of their doors, which is what we've provided here. Also, access to the center. Access was very important. The access needed to be maintained at a minimum of what it is today, which is including the full access onto Mitchell Hammock. That is a challenge with this, with getting a good quality tenant, because if you can't get a commitment of good access, then end up the groups end up looking elsewhere. So we're very excited about this. In fact, the next couple of graphics we have is shows some perspectives of what the development will look. This is just looking at the shopping center with the new architectural facade. Again, that will be coming before you in detail in following meetings. And then if we take to the next slide, is actually a look over the new out parcel that's right next to the BP. And so looking backwards at the center, and so you can see now it's relative to the street. Now it's actually got a development that's inviting for people to come in. And the next couple of shots give some perspectives. Again, you'll be looking at this in more detail in coming meetings. But this would be some of the new facade treatments for what would be the Sprouts building, the anchor stores. The next one is for the strip retail. That where the end cap is where Subway is right now, as you can see looking at us with the large tenant. And the next view is for the out parcel that's next to BP. So we're very excited about the proposal and very anxious to continue construction out on the site and bring this to a close. At least start the first chip, if you will, toward continued improvement along this southwest quadrant of the city.
Thank you, PJ.
Thank you.
If we have any questions, we'll call you. All righty, I just need a motion from council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Henkin.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 3582-18.
Second.
We have a motion second. Councilman Henkin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I'm just thrilled that, for me, that whole corner there, Mitchell Hammock 434, was a mess a couple of years ago. We had that new development on the north side, northwest side, and have you guys come in, clean that up, and get something that the citizens are going to like, I think is incredible. It looks awesome. I did get a chance to watch the LPA meeting that you guys went, and I have to say I'm sorry you had to go through some of that. Sometimes, it gets a little active there, but they're supposed to apply the code, not do what we do. So that was, and you guys handled that well. I did watch that whole thing, so that's why I don't have too many questions, because I think they put you through the ringer. But I think it's a great project. I think it really, as people come into the city and see what we've done on the other corner and you guys in there, I think it's a long time coming. 8 years it's been dead, you know. So thanks for reviving it. Good luck, and we're here if you need us.
Councilman Pollack?
Looks great. I'm excited to see this this corner finally have some new life to it. So everything looks good. I'm excited to see what other tenants are going to have in it.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm good. Good job. It's a long time coming.
Council member?
Wanted to give you guys a thumbs up on mentioning that you might have smaller than required or the smaller than average parking spaces. If you have a 10 by 20, you're looking at 200 square feet of impervious surface. If you do the 18 by 9, that's 162. So you save 38 square feet of pervious surface. So to the extent you're able to incorporate that more and more into your design, I just want to encourage you to do that. You're not under no obligation under our code to do it, from what I understand. But if that could happen on the edges, and I know you've got your layout already done, but it seems like it would be rather easy to just scoot it. So just throwing that out there for a potential thing. I also wanted to give you a thumbs up on the plaza. Keeping the same square footage and incorporating a little bit of public space, very nice addition. On the trees, I didn't watch the LPA meeting. Are some of those large trees going to be able to stay? All of them? Oh, so the healthy ones, are there some that, have they been cherry picked? I'd love more information on that.
That comes forth with the site plan later.
That comes forward in the site plan. But yes, we made a very strong effort to try and save as many of the existing healthy trees as possible. There are a number that have had damage over the years, and you could see that in some of their trunks that have been either, I don't know if they were struck by lightning or just torn off as a part of some of the wind damage, but several of the large clusters we've been able to save. So we did make a concerted effort to try and save large trees if they were existing.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you. The one thing I'm a little bit wary of, and I think we ought to say it from here, even though it sounds like LPA already addressed it, I am a little bit concerned about the full access down there on the westernmost end. I have traversed that on a bike numerous times, and when I get halfway out, usually the traffic is coming from the stoplight there, heading from Lockwood towards 426. Well, if I'm on a bike, I can turn my bike sideways, and I'm I'm in between the cars that are traveling. That is not the case if I'm a full car. So it's something that I hope, it sounds like over time there is a plan to put in a road that will lead people to a light. Is there any timeline in place for that at this time?
There is no timeline for the construction of the road, but the developer did obligate to grant the easements within the area of that parcel to the west over to the Popeyes and Kyoto parcels as a part of the development agreement. So at least it puts a legal ability for that to be investigated in the future. But there isn't a timeline at this point in time for it. That's going to be largely developer-driven as to those out parcels and when they're able to come in.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, there's my questions.
All right. Great job, gentlemen. I do have one question, because the developer is a huge fan. Why did your Red Sox go and sweep our Yankees? I just don't get it. And then not only did they do that, but you evidently went up there and witnessed a couple of games. Yeah, I appreciate the pictures. Thanks. I really have nothing else to add. It's been a long time coming. Great job. Get going. Get it started. The residents are waiting for Sprouts to come in, and I'm sure there's much more that'll follow with the development of the Sprouts and the improvement of the plaza, and just being able to see it. I mean, it's tough right now. Anything else? I'll call the vote. Motion on table is to adopt. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All righty. Let's just jump up to number 9 real quick, and then we'll get to number 8, because number 9 is just scheduling a public hearing. Ordinance number 1674, item number 9. Mr. Groot, can you just read that by title only, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, amending Chapter 34, Pensions and Retirement, Article 2, relating to the Police Officers Retirement Fund, amending Section 34-19, Definitions, amending Section 34-21, Board of Trustees, amending Section 34-47, Reemployment After Retirement, adding Section 34-48, Deferred Retirement Option Plan, adding Section 34-49, Supplemental Benefit Component for Special Benefits, Chapter 185, Share Accounts, providing for codification as well as the correction of Scribner's errors, providing for severability of provisions, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date. And that's the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a revision to the city's regulations that deal with the police officers' pension trust. And what it does, in the last bargaining session with the police union, we did institute what's known as a DROP program. It's a Deferred Retirement Option Plan. And so one of the things that we need to do is that we need to incorporate the Deferred Retirement Option Plan into the city's code of ordinances. And so that's what this ordinance does. And that way the agreement and the city code will be in line with each other. And it also does some other things. It brings in some other stuff, some cleanup items that we had to do as well with to bring consistency between the city code and the collective bargaining agreement. Tonight you're asked to schedule a public hearing for Monday, August 20th, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. This time I'd like to entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing on August 20th, 2018 on ordinance number 1674 here in the Oviedo City Council chambers, 400 Alexandria Boulevard, Oviedo, Florida, 32765 at approximately 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on. We're going to go backwards now up to item number 8, which is ordinance number 1673. Now, before we get into ordinance 1673, I just want to make one announcement to everybody here in the audience. This ordinance has already been passed. What we're doing this evening is just a rereading of an ordinance that's been passed 2 weeks ago. The hearing for the street lighting district is August 20th. It is not this evening. You're free to speak on it. It is a public hearing, but anybody who comes up to speak for or against the street lighting district will have to come back on August 20th if that is the issue that you're here for this evening. I apologize for any confusion that there may have been out on social media, but that was not put out by the city. The city advertised the street lighting district as August 20th. Mr. Groot, can you read ordinance number 1673 by title only, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. An ordinance of the City of Oviedo, Florida, amending Section 2 of Ordinance Number 1667, providing for legislative findings and intent and adopting an expert's report pertaining thereto, amending Article 4 of Chapter 42 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oviedo, providing for definitions, adding Section 42-74 and Section 42-77 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Oviedo, providing for other associated and related matters and the taking of implementing administrative actions, providing for a savings provision, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification and the correction of Scribner's errors, and providing for an effective date. And that's the ordinance by title, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Groot. Mr. Cobb?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading and public hearing for this ordinance. The City Council adopted ordinance number 1667 on February 9th, 2018, and that established the special assessment district for street lighting. And part of that ordinance was it defined 3 methodologies for which the assessment could be developed. When we met in June to discuss the different methodologies, the council picked a methodology that wasn't described in the original ordinance. And so what this ordinance does is that it incorporates the selected methodology, which is really a combination of 2 of the first 3, into the Code of Ordinances so that the methodology can move forward. We did adopt an emergency ordinance at the last meeting so that the preliminary special assessment could be established. But Mr. Groot also advised having the ordinance move through the normal ordinance adoption process. So it was read on first reading on July 16th, and then tonight you're asked to conduct a public hearing and adopt ordinance number 1673.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. As I mentioned, this is a public hearing. I do have one written request. It's from Mr. Scott Dunlap. Sir, name and address for the record.
Scott Dunlap, 773 Lawwater Drive. And Mayor, thank you and council for your service, and it is deeply appreciated, even though from time to time we disagree. And I apologize for the confusion on the dates. I would have waited. Probably be back then.
Sometimes social media is our worst enemy.
It can be. What I'd like to talk about is, since it's already been approved, I just want to express the concern we have on the sections H through L in the proposed ordinance. When you look at what was required in the statutes, the case law that was provided, and the information that was there, I'm going to run through some concerns, and we'll go through these again, I'm sure, on the 20th. But there's a requirement in 170.03 in the statute that you need to know the total cost of what you're doing. And we looked at the data, and by the way, Barbara, shout out to her. She's been fabulous in getting information. The staff's done a great job. We don't really know where the top is on this. When you do the math on the Duke conversion, which we saw today, it looks like there are over $200,000 to just convert. And then there's another, in the budget, it looked like there was $200,000 identified for places that did not have lights plus beginning conversion. And it doesn't look like that would be enough just for Duke, let alone FPL and the other ones. So it seems like we're going to be asking for more money at some point in this process. And that's, you have to know that to go into this, and it seems like we have a question there. The special benefits that were cited, if you're familiar with, I'm sure you are, with the statute, that these require a special benefit that is different from the community as a whole, and that only those personnel affected by that special benefit pay the actual assessment. The benefit statements are general statements. There's no data in there to back them up. And when I say data, I just did a couple of scans and looked at some information. I mean, the street lighting improves safety. Well, it's apparently in debate. It's not necessarily widely held that it does. Is it safer? Is it better? The AMA comes out with information about reducing harm from high-intensity street lights from apparently the blue light issues. So there's information that needs to be looked at with regard to how it's implemented. It's not apparent. Then the Atlantic coastline versus City of Gainesville, the legislature can't just make an edict that there's a special benefit. There has to be some evidence of it. In that report, the Wilden report, one of the conclusions was that the entire geographic area of the city benefits from the street lights. That statement in and of itself obviates that special benefits are going to be different for the individuals receiving it from the community as a whole. So there's a question on the special benefits, clearly. Another area in the statute, 17201, deals with levying of assessments. If it was previously done in ad valorem taxes, that section says that those ad valorem taxes should be abated annually back in the budget so that it's not charged twice. And with 80% of this lighting district being a transfer of the existing infrastructure over, it looks like there may have been some or much of the budget, but I'm not sure how much of it was paid out of ad valorem. But according to that statute, that would have to be abated back at some point in the future. The case laws in the study and the ordinance do appear to be out of context with what the city is proposing. And what I mean by that is if you look at all the citations that were in there, you read into them, for example, Winter Springs, Seminole County reference, Orange County reference, the various case law. There were many cases where those were all capital improvements, very clearly capital improvements you could trace, or they were adding services to areas that previously did not have them. It was never a case cited in there where we were moving the as-is to the new district and the building on top of it. It appears to be an inconsistency in that. And I've got some information if you want to see it later, or I can leave a copy with on the concerns on the specific case references.
Okay. Mr. Dunlop, we usually keep these to about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
I didn't start.
How we
the clock
doing on
you,
time
so
here? I'm sorry.
That's okay. We can wrap it up.
The other issue is that there's no apparent business case for this, and we looked at just the Duke estimates are 37% higher, and we don't know where the top is. So my recommendation would be we take a hard look at these issues before we get into the hearing. I'll be back. We'll talk about it again, I'm sure. But thank you for the time, and again, apologize for the confusion.
No, of course not. Thank you. We don't do that in here. Anybody else like to address council? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment portion, and I'm going to defer to the city manager and the city attorney for a moment. Mr. Groot, Mr. Cobb, I believe the chapter being cited might be wrong. So can you fill us in on which chapter actually applies to our district and the legality of it, please?
Well, this, Brian, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
This special assessment district, which is already established, is already part of the city code. All the findings have already been made. All the city councils adopted the legislative findings, adopted the Wildane report. All that is water way under the bridge. So the only issue that's before the council in the future will be the amount of the assessment and the imposition, which, as you correctly stated, is at this final resolution stage, which is not tonight. The city is not relying on Chapter 170. The case law is clear that the cities have home rule authorities. Chapter 170 specifically says it's a supplemental, additional, and alternative way, supplemental, additional, and alternative way to impose special assessments. Chapter 197 says basically the same thing. The Supreme Court of the state of Florida has specifically held that special assessments need not be based upon Chapter 170 or any statutory law. The only thing you look at is whether or not the special assessment district is prohibited by state law. This is clearly not prohibited by state law. In my judgment, and I think in the judgment of the consultant who's here, there's no legal question that relates to this assessment district. And in any event, if there were, the time for that to be raised is long past. Brian?
Yes, Mayor. That is the one thing that I did want to stress to the council is that our program has been based on Chapter 197, specifically Section 197-3632. And so we have followed Chapter 197, and in discussions with the attorney that works with our consultants, he advised that when you follow Chapter 197, there is no requirement that you also have to follow 170. You can do one or the other, or you can, you don't have to do both. I was also talking with another city manager over on the West Coast today, and we were talking about, they have a street lighting program. We were talking about our programs, and they do theirs a little bit differently, and it is older. They've been doing it since 2012. And we were talking about the two statutes, and he said the way you're doing it, following 197, is the proper way for you to do it. So I got some confirmation on that as well, but we did speak with the attorney, and he has advised us that we are following the proper statute for the program that we want to establish.
Great. You said the consultant is here. Does he have anything to add? Nothing at this. It's been vetted. Can you just come up for a second? Disappointed we didn't drag you away from a vacation this time. Just name and address real quick for the record.
Jeff McGarvey, Wildan Financial Services. I live at 3445 Rosemallow Loop.
Tara Hollis, Wildan Financial Services also, and I'm 3074 Riviera Bay Court.
There's been a lot of conversation, email traffic on chapters and statutes.
Correct.
And I think it all came to rest today. Can you just confirm for everybody?
I will confirm that our report was based on, and I think the recommendations in our report had it lined up with 197, the attorneys that we work with. And to be clear, we are not attorneys. We're not offering an opinion, a legal opinion at all, but we confirmed with them during the project as well here at the end of the project that that is the right one to follow, that 170 does not apply here.
Thank you. All righty. So we are up to council motion and discussion. So if I get a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number, well, I guess we are setting it for a public hearing, or are we adopting all the way? 1673.
I just need, it's a motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Council member, you have the floor.
Well, I did vote to create this district in the first place because my thinking on this is if we segregate the funds, there is an opportunity for greater oversight. If I had a do-over, and I do not, I don't think, seeing how this has unfolded, I would vote that way again. However, where we are right now is a place where it's already adopted, and what is proposed is the change makes the ordinance that's already in existence less horrible than it is if we do not pass it. So that is the only reason I can get behind changing the ordinance to allow this alternative mode of funding. However, all along I have said that I can't get behind it at all unless we do it with millage and we subtract the millage from what we were already charging people. I stand by that. There is a lot of variety and streetlight density, streetlight quality. We have some neighborhoods that have wooden poles with metal arms hanging off of them with maybe 1,000 feet between streetlights. We have other neighborhoods where every couple hundred feet you have a cute little carriage light. The level of maintenance required to get them all homogeneous varies wildly. And there is, according to plan, I have seen no intention to homogenize all of the streetlights in Oviedo. So when I look at it, even as some may, and it's a pure policy, I see both sides. There's, on the one hand, millage has one neighbor paying one thing, while a neighbor next door who may have lived there for 30 years pays much less because of homestead, and you're rolling some savings as you move around the state. And this would have everybody paying the same $78. But built into some of that with the millage, there is a bit of equity, in my opinion, because the people who have been here the longest, sometimes they live in the older neighborhoods. I live in an older neighborhood that doesn't have street lights that are fancy. They just stick off of poles. And if you've been here longer, you probably did not really get excited when lots of long streets were built with new street lights, or when the city accepted the terms negotiated by a developer who said, well, let's rent these street lights. And then 30 years from now, after they've depreciated and it's a problem, we'll let the city figure out how to fix it. So we are in a real pickle at this point because there are street lights that are, some of them are falling down, and they need maintenance. But I feel like the only fair thing is going to be millage, and I'm sure everybody will be here next time to talk about that, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody out there knows that my position on this has remained fairly consistent, and that I still don't think, there's creating the lighting district and there's funding it. At this point, it's there. Whether we fund it or not, that's not a done deal. That happens or doesn't happen via a variety of potential methods, one which could be millage on August 20th. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, if I could add one more thing. Thank you to all you guys over here, everybody on staff, and Wildan. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on. I had a ton of concerns, all of which by about 4 o'clock this afternoon were very thoroughly resolved. So better understanding the 170 versus 197 and some of that stuff. I very much appreciate everybody working through that with other cities to figure it out. But I think it's important for the public to know also that Winter Springs does not have a citywide lighting district. Castleberry does not have a citywide lighting district. Nowhere in Seminole County, there's no countywide lighting district. The way these usually work is the citizens say, hey, our lights are falling down. We'd like new ones. And then they come and they ask the government, can you help us out? And then people with similar lights will, you draw a little boundary around those people, and those people will work on the lights in their neighborhood to get them however they want. With the government's assistance, creating a taxing district to help more similarly situated homes. But this thing where we do a blanket thing, I've only been able to find one jurisdiction where it happened. That was Safety Harbor, and Mr. Cobb spoke with their city manager today and found out how similar and not so similar their lights are. And if you could share with everybody what the findings were on that. Mr. Cobb, could you let them know? You had mentioned that most of the lights there are wooden poles or like very basic poles with the arms hanging off, other than their downtown. So all the lights sounded like they were very similar. Does that sound like what he told you? I don't want to be the source of the information.
No, we had a discussion, and a number of their lights, yes, most of their, unlike Avito, a lot of their utilities are above ground. And because the utilities were above ground, they could make utilization of the existing light poles, and so they did put what they call Cobra headlights on the streets. They did do a special thing in their downtown. They do have underground utilities throughout their downtown, and so they do have the ornate, what I call the acorn style, which we have some here in Oviedo as well, acorn style street lights within their downtown, and I think there's one commercial district that they also have a special light there, but once again, their district is their city limits. That's their district.
Right. Thank you. Now it's not a fake out that I'm done.
Bob? You're my secondary.
Yes. Okay. I'm good with this ordinance. Some of the discussion that the councilwoman stated will be done at the 20th meeting. We can have that discussion then. But as for this, it's just this ordinance here is more of a cleanup item that we just needed to complete. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, you have anything to
add? Not really, but I thank you for the research you did. It seems to me like the devil's in the details. I voted for this because it did a couple things. Once, it made the lighting district an enterprise fund. It lets us pay for lights and electricity out of the fund that's dedicated for lights and electricity. And in doing so, it lets us pay for roads with the road tax money that we were using to pay for the electricity. It also lets us keep our millage rate as low as we can because of the briefings we've been given by staff and the threats to our ability to raise millage rates in the future that's being levied to us by the state legislature. So it's a very simple concept, and I understand the details are the details, and I think we're going to have to work those out. I don't see or I can see a possibility where we might lower that in sometime in the future if the numbers work out right. We're going to do the right thing. So let's keep the focus on what we're really intending to do. Thank you for the research, and we'll go forward and we'll figure out what needs to be done to fix it.
Thank you. Councilman?
Well, a couple of things that I just want to touch upon, and I guess we could talk about on the 20th, but being that we got out there, I think the one thing that we always have to be cautious about, and the mayor touched on it a little bit, is we cannot talk about these things in social media and opinion, especially from this board, because people take it and they twist it and they get confused, and when we're not sure, we shouldn't be out there saying this is going to happen and that's going to happen. But having said all that, I think, our millage rate is still lower than it was when I got here in 2005. So that's a good thing. We've become this vibrant city that has so many good things in it, and we have a state government that continues to just throw bombs at cities and try to take our power away. And eventually their end game is They want us to raise our millage so it gets so high. 10 is the max. Now we have nowhere to go. And then once you have that, then all these nice things that we do, these festivals and the parks and all the good things that makes Oviedo, Oviedo, you can't do it anymore if you max the millage rate out. So these special assessments are a way to do it. One thing that I discussed with Mr. Cobb today that I thought might be something to look at, I'm not sure if it's perfect, but, as Councilman Britton talked about, this is an enterprise fund. When you get your water bill every month, we have sewer, we have stormwater, all these funds that just pay for themselves. So maybe instead of putting it on the tax bill every year and paying the 78, maybe it could be a monthly bill on there, because I think some cities around the country might do that. Might be a better way to ease the burden. You talk $6 a month, $78 a year. People on fixed incomes may have a tough time paying that. So I asked Mr. Cobb to share that with you all and take a look at it. But honestly, folks, when you read stuff in social media and you get all riled up, like high tax increases that didn't materialize, this is something that, where is the money going that we had in our general fund? Well, health insurance is going up. We have 8 to 10 firefighters looking for new positions because we had to keep up. So everything goes up. But I can assure you that the 5 of us always, we cut this budget lean, and if you pick up a copy of it and read it, you'll see how lean it really is. It's not like we're just out there spending. Now, the gentleman came up and said that he maintains his own light, and I would encourage you to talk to our staff, because there are going to be issues like that where people are maintaining their own lights. They may have some exemption or something like that. We don't know that yet. But, the good things about this, Mitchell Hammock's going to get lit up from one end to the other. It's not lit up right now. Neighborhoods are going to get new poles eventually. They're going to get new fixtures. We are a great up-and-coming city, and I think doing something like this is good. We're separating it, and the millage can go for what it's supposed to go for. But, rest assured that sometimes what you see on Facebook and this other stuff is not correct, and this is probably a good thing. And Councilman Pollack, he's to be commended, because when I first heard this myself, I wasn't on board with it. I said, just do the millage, because people, I think, realize death and taxes are fine and they don't question it. They're both going to happen. But when you get that guy with that $500,000 house and the guy with the $200,000 house sharing the same light, that guy in the $500,000 house is really being penalized. So that makes it fair for everybody. And I think in the end, when this is all implemented, you will see, a very nice new lighting system out there and everything. And again, I just caution the 5 of us, when people call you and you're not sure, don't create hysteria on social media. And eventually, we need to talk about a policy with social media. It should come through the city, because that's why I got off Facebook, because most of the information on there is not correct. And well-meaning members or staff or whoever are trying to help, and until it all gets voted on the 20th or our budget's done, it just creates fear. But I could tell you, I think, we all have to pay it too. I think it's a good thing. I do like the idea of putting it on the bill with the other enterprise funds. I think that's something worthy to look into. If I'm missing something, then someone will correct me. But I think once this goes through and you see the improvements, and people who don't have street lights, I think we all got an email today. Somebody said, well, I've been asking for street lights for 2 years. I don't have it. And the answer is that we're going to go into those streets that don't have them. We're going to put them in. We got an email from a lady today who said she's been trying to get some lights. So the gentleman's concerned about maintaining his own. Let's look at that. People that don't have it will get it, and I think we're going to be the better for it. Just remember, Oviedo isn't like any other city. Oviedo, we want to be great. We want to be the best out there, and we are a full-service city doing a lot of things, and there's some cost going on it, so we're going to get there. So I'll turn that back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. No, sir. Not at this time. Sorry. We can answer your question afterwards, though. I'll just piggyback on what all the members said. 'Cause there's all different points being made on this. First off, there's no denying it's an increase. Not one of us has ever denied that this is an increase in revenue for the city. It was just a matter of, for those who follow us more closely, because this has been discussed since February, guys. This isn't something new. It's been on our agendas. We've talked about it in these chambers. We've had workshops on it, and so on and so forth. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Ma'am, one more outburst, and you will be asked to leave. Okay, thank you. Okay, I asked for decorum earlier.
Yeah, we ask for a lot of stuff for you too, but you don't deliver, do you?
Nice night. Nobody denied, ever, that this was an increase. If everybody was here during the budget shop, they would have seen the financial horizon for the city, coming from the city manager, seeing the needs that we have. Councilman Henkin pointed out increase in labor cost for public safety. We have increase in health insurance. We have money that we're taking out of gas and sales tax funds to fund streetlights that should be used for road repaving in your neighborhoods. We have about $250,000 or $300,000 now that we use out of the general fund each and every year for the streetlights. Streetlights, just, somebody sent me an email that they said maybe we just get the streetlight ferry to pay for the streetlights. I mean, they get paid for it. We pay the maintenance, we pay the electrical cost to Duke, FPL, or very few of them to OUC. And then the city actually owns, I think we own Franklin Street, right? Those are ours. So we actually maintain the lights on Franklin Street. So there's no denying that, folks. We're not sitting here ever going to tell you that this isn't going to shift about $300,000 or $400,000 more back into the general fund and about the same amount of money back into the gas tax fund that gets used for other things, as I mentioned earlier. So, I mean, there isn't anyone that would say it's not. The millage, I mean, that got brought up, I don't know how many times we debated how to assess this fee. And if we assess the fee as a millage, as been pointed out, you have disparate valuations depending on when you bought your home, where your home is purchased. And I'll use my neighborhood, and actually I think they gave us, staff used, was it Lake Rogers, Mr. Cobb? I think it was Lake
Yes,
Rogers.
it's Lake Rogers.
Staff took, and I'll give you my example in a moment. Staff used the whole entire community of Lake Rogers. And the fee ranged from like $38 to $200, $180?
$140.
$140 for the same streetlight. In my neighborhood, in my instance, I built my house. 22 years I've been there. So my valuation, because of Save Our Homes, is about $220,000. It's a public record. Anybody can look it up. My neighbor across the street, though, who just bought his house, is assessed at $350,000. We have the same 6 streetlights, at least on our street. So he would pay, it's 0.3 is about the millage equivalency. I think Councilwoman figured that out.
0.338.
No, well, let's just use 0.3 for now. Easy math. $66 at my house, $105 at his house for the same function. Now, let's get into some examples, and Councilman Henkin and everybody has brought them up. Stormwater. We all benefit from stormwater. We all pay $10 a month, no matter where you live. That's what you pay for stormwater. We all benefit from garbage, right? The big truck comes by, picks up everybody's garbage. Each and every one of you, no matter where you live, pays $20 a month approximately, 19 something. Water. And in some cases sewer, but we'll use water because everybody in the city has a water meter in front of their house. Every one of you, no matter where you live, pays about $10 a month for that meter. So when we sit and we talk millage for this specific enterprise fund, because that's what it's going to become, it's hard to swallow that disparate difference when it's a function and a service. It's actually probably less expensive for more than that, and I don't know where the median was. That's an interesting point. I'd like to know where the median is in valuation of the city. I'm sure we could figure that out. But it actually makes it fair as everything else that we have and all the other enterprise funds that we have for services that are provided. city budget, as I said earlier, we have, it's all public record. We have some challenges in the budget. We have some old bond debt that's being paid for this building and others from the 90s, is it, Mr. Cobb?
Yes, sir, from the 90s.
90s, left over from the 90s. Now, that bond debt was tied to be paid by impact fees, specifically Parks and Recreation type impact fees and one of the other funds. I forgot which one it was.
Fire.
Right, fire. Now, when we were building 1,000-home subdivisions, and everybody was paying those impact fees, they were paying for these buildings. Well, everybody says nowadays, look at all the building and all the growth. There's nothing today. You're just seeing taller buildings. There's nothing today like what happened here in the 90s. The 90s, 2000, the development that we had, and the impact fees that were coming in, that were paying for this, that now aren't. So that comes out of the general fund also. So, I mean, if we're going to have this discussion, we've had this discussion here in the council chambers numerous times. I'm sure the videos are online at the different workshops. These are the challenges that we face. So when we look at this, and this isn't new, actually. We looked at a street lighting district back in 2007,
I think is when it was.
5?
I think the first
No,
time
I think Jerry Sieber was here.
First time you looked at it was in 2004, and then you looked at it in 2000.
Right, yeah, 2004. City manager was Jerry Sieber at the time, and I think Bob Benkowski. Well, Bob was involved in both of them.
Yes.
They always wanted us to move this over. This is something we should have done years ago. We didn't, so now we're faced with it today. If it was just a fee that didn't have a benefit, I could certainly understand everybody being upset. Sir, again, you can ask us questions afterwards. Again, sir, this is council discussion. That's why we have the public comment. I lost my train of thought. The fee is going to improve the system. We constantly get phone calls. We have a section in Alafaya Woods. I'll use it as a perfect example. I think it's in front of the sewer plant, right on McKinnon?
Yes.
Right? There's no streetlights. It's $20,000 to put those streetlights in. We barely have the money that we're taking out of the gas tax fund to fund what we have. So we never get to install these lights. It's needed. The police department has said it's needed. Everybody has said it's needed. This will enable us to do that. Councilman Henkin pointed out, we received a phone call today from a woman on Lawn Street, I think it was, been requesting a light. Well, we just don't have the funds to do it. Mitchell Hammock Road is a dangerous road, guys. You go through those sod fields at night, you get over on the Kingsbridge side, once you get past the intersection of Clara Lee, there's no lights. North Lockwood, there's no lights. This will also be a conversion over to LED. So once the cost is paid up front and the conversion occurs and our franchise agreements come up with the power companies, because a lot of what we're doing is, I don't want to call it strangled, but it's directed by what these current franchise agreements say. The electric companies have 30-year franchise agreements. They don't come up again for, 2001 or 2 we signed the new one, so about 2030 it'll be. And we can actually sit there and address that with.
Yeah, for Duke it is. I think FPL comes up sooner.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember we did them both right around the same time, sometime back in early 2000. And also a lot of it is state-driven, what the utilities are allowed to charge us, through the PSC. When that franchise agreement comes up, staff has already committed at one of our workshops, they're going to do a study on possibly us taking on all the lights. There may be cost savings. If we just take them on and meter them. That's what we do on Franklin Street. But, when a light breaks, then obviously we have to call up a contractor to come out. And I think we use OUC for those, if I'm not mistaken. Bob, we love OUC. Great company. To come out and fix them. So this is just the beginning. There's it was mentioned earlier that, the budget's the 200,000, 200,000, we only have 300,000. That's 200,000 over so many years. So it'll be, partly funded one year, partly funded the next and the next. To be completely frank with everybody, so that way you go home with all of the information on this, FPL has informed us that they can do their territory in about a year's time. Is that what they told us, Bobby? Right, Larry Voltek, I think I remember he was here. About a year's time. So FPL is everybody essentially over the bridge on 419. So it'll be Sanctuary, Riverside, and Live Oak. But what's really funny is in Riverside there's one street that's Duke, but I guess we'll have to figure that one out. So they can do that because that's about 1,000 poles, 980, something like that, right? Okay, 600 poles for FPL. Duke has informed us it's going to be a 2 to 3 year project because we have 4,000 poles. Well, it's simple math. 600 belong to FPL. That's 3,400 changeouts. The initial changeouts will be on the Cobra heads because those are easy. Those are bulb changeouts. The poles that are currently out there are the fiberglass poles. The fiberglass poles do not work with the LED equipment. Both FPL and Duke have told us that. They have to switch out the poles. So in your neighborhoods, because that's another complaint we get constantly, the pole, council member mentioned it, pole is falling over, pole is split, pole needs to be painted. I mean, some of them, you drive through Alafaya Woods and they're gray. I mean, blue. The fiberglass is coming out of them. Riverside has that issue. Twin Rivers has that issue. Part of Twin Rivers, though, I think got repainted a few years ago. I think by the golf course side, they repainted some of them. But they'll all get replaced. So it's, I realize everybody wants to come down and storm City Hall. I get it. I appreciate it. And Mr. Dunlop, thank you for all your work. Your wife has shared some of it with me. And you are very diligent and obviously very talented at what you do, and we do appreciate it. But, it's all been vetted, what we're doing. So we're just trying to figure out now the correct way to assess the fee. Councilman Henkin mentioned maybe attaching it to the water bill. We have a lot on our water bill. Most municipalities, the garbage and stormwater are on your tax bill. In our city and some others, it's on the water bill. If it's on your tax bill and this $78 and you have a mortgage, your mortgage company is going to pay it when they pay your escrow. So you won't see it. If it's on your water bill, you're going to be staring at it every month. So that'll be debate amongst us later on. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. It's just a decision that we will all have to eventually make. So Castleberry was mentioned. Castleberry does have a citywide lighting district. Castleberry took out certain corridors on the commercial corridors, 1792 in particular, because they have a CRA along that area. But every neighborhood in Castleberry, except for the gated communities, because the gated communities in Castleberry privately pay for their lights. But every other neighborhood other than the gated in that stretch of the main thoroughfare that they can use CRA money is in their lighting district fee. So it's, council member is correct. It's not completely citywide. But
They have 5 different levels of service.
But it is citywide. And here in the city, the north end of town, look at Bentley Woods. Look at those lights. I mean, you go through that neighborhood, those poles are probably older than Alafaya Woods or close to it. Right? 90s, I guess.
Yeah,
Bentley
they're
Woods.
10 years newer.
Right, 90s? Bentley Woods? Mid-90s?
90s.
Yeah, mid-90s. McKinley Mills. I mean, there's a lot of areas that have them. And as Mr. Cobb said, the reason the newer neighborhoods have poles is because the utilities are underground. The reason the older neighborhoods have the Cobra heads are because back in the day, in the 40s and the 50s when they were built, they were stringing lines. They have them overhead. Now, is it disparate and unfair that in some of the older neighborhoods you might not have one for 2,000 feet? Absolutely. But that's what we're trying to address with this. This will give us the funds to address that. Point I started to make earlier, and I sidetracked myself, was the cost savings in this over time. Once we switch over to LED, once you have the longer bulbs, once you have the lower electric cost, and the utilities start to recognize that. That's where the pressure is going to have to come from, Tallahassee and others, and we'll work with them. What we pay them each month should go down, because it's not a sodium bulb anymore that's burning, and I'm not an engineer, I'm sure Bobby could tell us, or smarter people out there who could figure out the wattage and what it actually costs. But those are discussions we'll have to have. So I've gone on very long. I do apologize to my fellow members and everyone in the audience. I just wanted to get everything out there that we've been discussing for months and months and months and months on this. So this item tonight, as I announced earlier, this is just a cleanup item. August 20, though, please come on back down, because that's when we'll actually be putting this all together. And I'll briefly go back and forth if there's anything anybody wants to add. No, Bob, anything? Anything, Keith?
No.
Steve?
Good.
Good? All right. Well, and we appreciate everyone coming out. And sir, don't leave, because when we're done, I'll gladly answer any question you have. Well, that being said, we do have a motion to adopt on the table. Mr. Cobb, Mr. Groot, anything that you wanted to add before I call the question?
I have nothing.
Just one thing.
Yes, Mr.
Not to be combative or anything, but I like to address things as they come up. On page 4 and 5 of the Wildane report, it does go through legal conclusions. Whenever a consultant, whether it's Wildane or any other consultant, provides legal analysis and a report given to you, you can rely upon it. And you can rely upon it as legal advice. I check it out, but the consultant puts it out. So that is reliable.
It's on page 4 of the report?
Yes, 4 and 5.
So they've accepted responsibility.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Groot.
And Mr. Mayor, I just have one more thing, and I'm kind of glad the mayor went on as long as he did, and we all chimed in. And now, if you feel the need to tell the public on Facebook what happened, now, I always say, unless we all win, nobody wins. Tonight, we all got together, we hashed it out. Most people, I think, will be fine. Some probably still won't. You're never going to appeal to everybody. But whenever we get something, everybody, just wait till all the facts come in. It is okay. I do it all day long. I'm not sure. Let me make sure I have the right information and get it. People appreciate that more than being alarmed and having information. So tonight, I think we had a great discussion. Everybody was on board. I think tonight we can clearly tell people what's happening. So just be careful out there. You guys, you run the city, we all run the city, and the people are depending on us to get it right. So sometimes it takes a little while. I'm not sure, but tonight I think we have a good direction, and I think, Mayor, that was a very good history of it all. I think it laid it out good, coupled with what everybody else did. So hopefully everybody's a little bit clearer and feels a little better.
I piggybacked on everybody's thoughts, I think, on here. Nobody's thoughts were discounted. But that being said, the motion is to adopt the cleanup ordinance, which is 1673. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All righty. So that is the end of all of our business items. We're going to move on to Mr. Cobb's report.
I have no report tonight, Mayor.
All righty. Mr. Groot?
Likewise, Mr. Mayor.
No report?
No, sir.
Okay. Steve Henkin, you are up.
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Sladek.
A couple of months ago, right when all the Rivercross stuff came up, I asked about us maybe coming up with some sort of formal resolution to say that we support the rural boundary where it is, as it's been put in the charter. I just wanted to bring that back up again and see if there may be some interest in doing that. It was something that was brought up at CalNO, so maybe pass that down the line to Councilmember Britton, if you think it's an okay idea.
Well, it did come up, and I recall something being said up here as to why we would not want to make an official opinion on it, but we did agree to bring it up here. I do remember from the council meeting.
Why don't we ask Mr. Groot?
Yeah.
I think the issue becomes is the other bodies can do that, and we did it with the Orange County stuff. But I think the issue is that this body could be quasi-judicial on that matter at some point in time.
You could, and I also think, as I recall, didn't Commissioner Delary ask you not to at this time, too?
They had asked us to follow their lead.
So, but that's true. You could end up in a quasi-judicial proceeding in addition to the request that was made.
Right, and then, Mr. Groot, if we came out with this resolution either in support or completely against, because the eastern neighborhoods have requested this, the issue could become county, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with this, guys. I'm just walking through it here. County denies, they go to court, they prevail, meaning the developer gets kicked back to the county, they come to us, they want to annex in, we're all up here, and the developer walks up here and says, well, you know, you guys can't make a decision because you're all biased against me, and he goes back to the court, and then it's not in our hands.
You nailed it, Mr. Mayor.
I've been down the road many times. Thank you, Mr. Groot. I'm sorry, council member.
Well, when we have constituents who are asking us to do something or say something or give some indication of where we stand on it, I can't help but want to go ahead and do that out loud. That may, I don't know, that seems a little bit far-fetched.
Why don't you just point out to the constituents that this was the only city in all of Seminole County who wrote a resolution in support of the rural boundary, and hand them that one. It's here at City Hall. Don't forget, we did that back in 2003, whenever the vote was. I was here. I mean, I remember doing it.
I think, if I remember correctly, the vote was in 2004.
Okay.
So it would have
Whenever it was
been
done.
right before, it would have been before the
Could you get a
referendum.
copy of that resolution and provide it to everybody so that the
It would be nice, yeah, that would be nice to get it out there, because the two of us weren't here back then. So-
Mr. Mayor?
I'm not even sure you guys were here. Were you here in 2000?
No, 5.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Brian or Mr. Groot, would it be inappropriate if staff did a paper on concerns regarding that, not rendering an opinion from us, but just like we did with the Orange County, say here's some of the impacts that we see with this?
Well, the only issue is, I mean, y'all set the policy, and so
Well,
for staff
didn't the developer, didn't I see something float around to all of us? They approached us about infrastructure and services, and I think staff wrote them a letter and said we don't have them.
We did respond to a request when we stated that we couldn't serve it, yes. One thing I would say is, I think the biggest difference between this project and the Orange County project is that, yes, this project, if it were ever to become connected to our city boundary and eligible for annexation, then we would have, it could end up in our jurisdiction. And right now, we don't have jurisdiction. It is purely a county decision. When the county requests that we provide an analysis, if the county comes in and says we're doing our governmental coordination, and we would like to know if you have any impacts to Oviedo, is there any concerns about Oviedo? We can provide that information when the county asks for it, which is the appropriate thing to do. But for us to go and just prepare something prior to the county asking for it, I think that would not be in keeping with what as far as our interlocal agreements that we have, and as well, as far as state statute when it comes to intergovernmental coordination. We need to let them take the lead, and when they ask us for assistance, then we can provide it. Our planning staff's monitoring it, and like I said, the developer came to us and asked us if we could provide utilities. Public Works said no. If we do, then we can't provide for the rest of the city. So, I mean, there's quite a few, trying to just even get to them is a technical nightmare. So I think the thing, Mr. Britton, I would say let's wait until the county gets into their process, because they do have applications, and when they ask us to address what impacts may come our way, then it would be the appropriate time to do it then.
Is the fact that we're up here even discussing it create a bias?
no.
Okay.
But if you make a policy decision if you make a policy decision now, or even a technical decision hypothetically about an area, that causes the situation that the mayor described, where you have somebody come up to the dais and say you can't decide this because you've already expressed your opinion.
Okay.
So if we do it as a body, it doesn't work, but if we do it individually, speaking up here, it's okay? Because, I know that Lee Constantine and Bob Delary definitely think it's a bad idea from things that they have said. And I don't know for sure on the other two, but if people have their suspicions. So
The issue becomes not, this is my standard spiel at the planning agency level. When you get appointed to a board or you're elected to a body, your advocacy ends. Your decision's important, but you're one of the few people who get to make a decision. But you're one of the few people who also cannot be an advocate anymore. That makes it sort of strange, but that's true. Thank you. So once you become an advocate, you lose your ability to vote.
It's very similar to, and and I don't want to discuss this issue. I just want to point this out. It's very similar to what happened to us with the golf course. Because everyone in this community got so mad at us because we weren't telling you what we were going to do with the golf course, and we couldn't tell you what we were going to do with the golf course because in case that developer came in front of us and put an application before us to develop his 300 homes, we could not be biased. And we stayed silent, and we all took a whooping out there from a lot of folks who didn't understand why. Now, at the end of the day, we all did the right thing, but we couldn't say anything, and it's the same situation. It's the same. We've had other situations like this before where we've been asked to, unfortunately, be silent, but by being silent, we give ourselves the ability where your council could make a decision. If we all become biased, and they come in here, some judge is going to make that decision, and we don't want that to happen.
All right, well, on a lighter note, the golf cart ordinance has sunset, I found out today. I was noticing that 3 of them were tootling around within my visual area, and I was wondering if there might be consensus to consider giving it another try in a different neighborhood where golf carts have already been spotted and are routinely used.
Why don't we let Chief take a look at that, because we have a new chief.
Okay.
Could you report back in a couple of weeks, Chief?
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you. That's all for me.
Great. Who's up next? Deputy Mayor's up. Keith.
Mayor. Just a couple things. First of all, we had a council meeting that we hosted. Councilwoman Sladik was there. The theme of it was to share senior programming ideas between the various cities. We've all got senior programming in various forms, including Seminole State, and we shared the ideas. I wish there were more people from our committee, but we did gather a whole lot of information that we're going to use to augment what we're doing. And as we go forward, I can see a few more meetings in the future coming up on that. And I believe, well, we won't be here next week, so we'll be at League of Cities next week, and I believe I'll be the voting representative for the city.
You notice we didn't even appoint one of us. We just kind of.
Yeah, I know.
You're it.
All right.
Britton, you're it.
So
they used to do that thing at 6:30 in the morning. And just a quick funny story. I always like to tell this at Florida League of City time. I'm newly elected, right? I'm bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. And Florida League of Cities coming up. I'm all excited, and the council members all ask, "Oh, we've got to appoint a delegate." And I raise my hand, and I'm like, "I'm there. Oh yeah, you can have it, Dominic. No problem." Yeah, it was 6:30 in the morning. We had to get up and get down there and vote. Now I don't think they do it quite as early.
it's 9 o'clock-ish or so. Yeah. And last thing I did go on a business trip to Indianapolis a couple weeks ago and met one of Indianapolis's finest, and gave him my card and said, "Send me a patch." And I'll have our chief send you a patch. And he said that it'll be in the mail tomorrow, so I just got it. Chief, if you can, I'll give this to you. If you can send it to Officer Young and tell him, give my regards. I felt very safe in the city. That's all I have.
Thank you, Keith. I'll be quick. Couple of things. I mentioned it earlier. Who saw the lip sync video that OVPD did? That thing was great. Wasn't it? Great job, Chief, to everybody. It was a lot of fun. So, Chief White, do we have a competing video coming from Fire?
No, we didn't count your contest.
Uh-huh. Ladies, would you like another calendar?
Yes.
Anyway, I'm
Better find out where Dana is.
Dana's
We're gonna
not
make
here
that new
anymore.
calendar.
Anyway, it was a great event. They did the premiere over at the amphitheater on Friday evening. There were probably about 200 people there at least. It was packed, and it's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, you can go to the police department's Facebook page. They have a link up there. They put it out on Twitter. Go to YouTube and just search for it. It'll come up, and it's a lot of fun. It's about 6 minutes long, but they went to all different areas around the city, and the chickens even make an appearance. So it was excellent. This week, the mall, the Oviedo Mall, had the ribbon cutting of their new area called the District. The District is down by Macy's. It's in the old Macy's wing, and it's kind of like a Dave & Buster's. That type of atmosphere. There's tons of TVs, bar, food, games for the kids. Small bowling alley. I mean, I could describe it more like duck pin bowling, with a little string on the pins, but the pins aren't shaped like candles; they're shaped like pins. But it is a big improvement to the mall, and hopefully it brings some more traffic in there for them. And one last thing, if it's the pleasure of council, I was speaking to the clerk earlier, and we were going through future meetings, and what we discovered is this year in November we have a unique thing coming up where our second meeting is actually the week of Thanksgiving. So generally when that occurs, we do usually cancel it because staff will be out of town, we'll be out of town.
Yes.
Is there a consensus if
Yes,
the staff doesn't need us for that meeting?
yes.
Yes? All righty. Mr. Cobb, we'll leave that up to you. I mean, if something imperative comes up, of course, just call us in for a meeting. But if not, maybe if we can do it all at the first meeting. December, we always cancel the second meeting. So, if it becomes too much, just let us know.
Will do.
All righty. That is the end of my report. Bob, last but not least, welcome back into town, Bob. Where are you going with the camper this week?
Nowhere. I'm actually staying at home. The only thing I had to add is the district, the escape rooms are over there. And if you haven't done one of those yet, they're so much fun.
Their rooms are all themed too. They gave me a tour of them. They're not quite open yet, but there's like a horror one, a submarine one, the elevator shaft one, and I forgot what the fourth one was because that was the one that was still under construction. But they hold 3 of the rooms can hold 10 to 12 people. One of the rooms can only hold 6 to 8. Smaller room. They look like they're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Nothing else? That's it? No, geez, I got to come back. All righty. Future meeting dates. We have Monday, August 20th, as I've announced a few times. We have a 5:30 p.m. CRA Governing Board meeting. 6:30 p.m. will be the regular session on the Lighting District fee. It'll be here. Monday, August 27th, we have a tentative work session. Mr. Cobb, is there a subject matter for that yet?
Right now, no.
Okay.
That's why we wanted to keep it tentative.
All right, so everybody's going to pencil that in on their calendar. Barbara, if you could just make sure that's just dropped in all of our calendars with a question mark.
Brian, you don't think you're going to need it, though?
I don't think we're going to need it.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
All right, well, as soon as you know, if you can drop it in our calendar.
We'll do.
Thursday, September 6th, regular session, 6:30 p.m. Now, that is correct. That's Thursday. That's odd because we're always here on Mondays. But that is the evening that we adopt the budget. We cannot adopt our budget while other governing authorities are adopting their budget, correct?
Correct.
And we always conflict with the school boards.
School board, they have to go first.
Yeah, so they've got to go first. So that's why our meeting is Thursday, September 6th at 6:30 p.m. That is not a mistake. And then Monday, September 17th, 6:30 p.m. regular session. With all that being said, it's about 4 minutes after 8. Mr. Cobb, Mr. Groot, anybody have anything else for us?
No, sir.
No? All righty, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.